Good morning, everyone. I'm told you can hear us well. Is that right? Will somebody wave if you can hear me? Good. That's a relief. Because up here on stage, it was very difficult to figure out what the people on the podium were saying. But I really am happy to join you all this morning to have the opportunity to share with you, with all of you, my perspectives on the importance of startups and innovation, particularly with reference to our experiences and certain lessons that we can all learn from them. That there's a growing awareness of the importance of innovation and entrepreneurship in Kerala and in India is no surprise to me, because it demonstrates our society's growing faith in our potential to find new ways to solve traditional age-old problems that we continue to struggle with. Across the world, nations today are increasingly transitioning to entrepreneurship-driven economies that look towards innovation as the path to the future, where answers are being found through fresh ideas and fresh thinking. That's where startups come in, driven by factors such as availability of both domestic and international funding, consolidation activities by a number of firms, the evolving technology space, and a burgeoning demand for new products and services within the domestic market. Startups have now permeated our landscape, and there is undeniably a global embrace of innovation and entrepreneurship as a powerful tool through which nations can find new answers to our age-old questions. So, when you actually look at the etymology of the word innovation, since I have a notorious reputation for being obsessed with words, I'll inflict this one on you. You find it has a very interestingly turbulent history. The term is originally derived from the Latin word innovatus, which meant to renew or to restore, but oddly enough, for the better part of its brief history, innovation was a derogatory term. It was not complimentary. In the English language, it was used to describe something that was untested or untried and therefore carried an implicit element of risk. Its redemption only came in the 20th century with the influential economist Joseph Schumpeter, who saw it as the greater end product of any successful innovation, of any successful invention, and as a precursor to development, locating entrepreneurship as the pathway between the two. Now, the phraseology of disruption is also following the same roadmap, once a negative term, increasingly seen in a positive light. Now, as Thiruvananthapuram's Member of Parliament, and therefore as an Indian in our political space, let me point out that the key terms here, both innovation and disruption, have a long and embedded history in the development of India. In the land of Ayurveda, the country that invented the zero, made the decimal system possible, dreamt up algebra, the land of the first recorded instance of rhinoplasty surgery more than 2,000 years ago, the tradition of innovation cannot be said to be entirely new. But one could argue that the contemporary interest in innovation in the Indian context stems from the remarkable and proven record of Indians in more recent years in globally recognized innovation hubs such as Silicon Valley, which towards the end of the 20th century saw the proliferation of a number of startups helmed by Indians. Now, a startup is largely defined as an enterprise that uses technology to change a process, a product, or a market with an ambition to grow fast, with a scalable business model for maximum reach and impact. In an interesting statistic I read recently, 13.4% of all startups that originated in Silicon Valley in the 1980s, 90s, and early 2000s were founded by Indians. Many of these have gone to become household names across the world. It is said that 40% of all Silicon Valley companies have Indians amongst their founders or amongst their current leadership. Together with our historic aptitude for adaptability and entrepreneurial strengths, naturally, this has come to India as well. Today, the Indian city of Bengaluru is recognized as the Silicon Valley of India, though, of course, geographically it's more of a Silicon Plateau. And there's also a place in Mumbai which is jokingly known as Powai Valley for the large number of startups that are located there. From Oyo to Ola, Indian startups are taking on strong competitors on the global landscape. Many of these have now joined the prestigious ranks of the global unicorns. Of course, you all know that is the nomenclature for privately held startups valued at over $1 billion. An expression coined by Eileen Lee because of their rarity or almost their mythical nature of their possibility. But India's unicorns, unlike the unicorn of myth, is not likely to become extinct. In fact, if anything, they seem to be proliferating in our country. In fact, we've invented our own club for small businesses and young but ambitious ventures that we call the nano unicorns. This is a pilot project launched in the Indian state of Odisha, which promotes skill development and business capacities for individuals who display distinct entrepreneurial traits. It could be the owner of a manufacturing unit or even a roadside street food vendor. At the same time, we've seen a 50% increase in the country in startups using advanced technology, especially in the Internet of Things and in data analytics, setting the pace globally in tandem with the amplification of entrepreneurial diversity in India. The manner in which there's now a proliferation of startups within the country is impressive. Our country has emerged as the world's third largest startup ecosystem, with over 99,000 startups officially registered under the Department for the Promotion of Industry and Internal Trade, DPITT, as of May this year. The phenomenal rise of entrepreneurs in India, which is a trend reflected globally, reflects how ambitious and talented individuals today are ditching the traditional path of what we used to think constituted a good education, a good profession, and a good career. Instead, they're taking to entrepreneurship as a way not just to a successful career, but equally as a tool to establish their own legacies. Today, the options we have available to us are countless, but it wasn't always so. I remember after my days in college, how few were the options available to graduating youngsters in the India of the late 60s or the early 70s. Even within the higher education system, today there are more subjects one can study, courses are available that didn't exist in my college days, and far more jobs and career options are on offer to today's youth than we could have dreamed of back then. The nations of the world, of course, also often operated in silos, with limited options for international exposure for the talent in our country, in India. The term globalization hadn't even been coined. Today, we all know that the world is smaller, opportunities for Indians are far greater, and our youth now have a wide variety of choices in and outside our country that were unknown to previous generations. Now, technology has therefore changed the way that people work, used to communicate in the modern workplace. The arrival of smartphones, social networking sites, chat apps has brought communication to a new level. Communication amongst employees, between management and subordinates, management to management, business to consumer. All of this has become fast, instantaneous, more deliberate, more collaborative, and more unified. When the COVID pandemic forced so many of us to work from home is now preferred in many cases, even after the pandemic is behind us. Work itself has been transformed by video conferencing. In fact, I was going to mention the Chief Minister, all Chief Ministers, but he was here, used to call regular meetings of all the MPs of Kerala in a conference room prior to a parliament session, so that the Kerala government could convey its concerns to the MPs to take up in parliament. After the COVID pandemic, what was forced at that time has now become its preferred option. We only meet online. The same meeting was held yesterday, it was done online, saving everybody a huge amount of travel time. So this is already a transformation that's happening. Offices are turning increasingly paperless, not our government bureaucracies yet, but that will come. Innovations in telemedicine are soaring, and every week brings stories or rumors of dramatic new breakthroughs in artificial intelligence, robotics, and other fields that will make our daily lives unrecognizable. It's no longer safe to assume that tomorrow will look like yesterday. Indeed, you can no longer be sure that tomorrow will look like today. Now, with all of its advantages, the era of technology heralded by globalization also brings a sobering caveat. Technology is developing so rapidly that it threatens the very existence of industries, many of which employ a large number of people. I wrote not too long ago of what we all saw with the medical transcription business, which was a sunrise industry in the early years of this century because Indians had cornered the market in being able to help doctors across the globe to transcribe their medical notes. In the old days, an American doctor would have to pay an expensive secretary, have to pay them overtime and sick leave, keep them on to dictate the notes after they saw their patients during the day, wait for a draft to come back with lots of mistakes, correct them again. All of that was eliminated when the internet enabled doctors to send their notes across to India, qualified young people, type them up as medical transcripts while the doctor was sleeping at night, and sent them right back the next morning, which made life much easier for the doctors. It became a boom industry. For 4 or 5 years, there was a proliferation of businesses in India offering medical transcription services, mainly targeting American doctors. And then one day, the bottom fell out of the opportunity. Why? For the simple reason that artificial intelligence-enhanced voice recognition software came on, and all the American doctor now needed to do, rather than pay some Indian company every month, was to buy a software once, into which enabled him, of course, to speak into his computer and watch his own words appear on the screen in real time. That was the end of the medical transcription industry. We've seen something very similar happening more recently with Indian radiologists who used to read American MRIs. It was said that in Boston's Massachusetts General Hospital, they had such a shortage of radiologists that 90% of their MRIs were sent to India to be read in India and interpreted for the patients and doctors in America. Now artificial intelligence has stepped in, and Indians are no longer needed to do that. These are the kinds of changes that one can call disruptive. So the opportunities in the medical business that have been transformed by modern technology has rendered business models in India obsolete. There's no question that as far as we're concerned, our literacy is soaring, but people no longer write letters. They're calling their loved ones on the phone or by sending them short texts or memes. Something precious is lost, but that's another form of technology disruption. Entertainment no longer comes from one Doordarshan TV channel or even by discs being mailed to you by Netflix. They're delivered not just to a TV screen, but to your phone. Books are being read, in as much as they are being read at all, on handheld tablets. Libraries are installing computer workstations in order to stay relevant. You know, I was struck by the Oxford Martin School did a study a few years ago, a couple of years ago, that estimated that 30% of the jobs in the world in 2030 will be jobs that do not exist today. Equally, at least 30% of the jobs today will cease to be necessary or viable by then. So we need to adapt. As the American inventor and futurist Ray Kurzweil observed, we will not experience 100 years of progress in the 21st century, but the equivalent of 20,000 years of progress. Every company and industry, every business and enterprise can be certain of one thing, that we'll either have to be a disruptor or be disrupted, or both perhaps in the foreseeable future. Adjusting to change must be everyone's mantra. Standing still will essentially mean moving backward and being left behind as the change whirls on. So to continue to overcome the challenges that we face in this century and beyond, we must count upon the inherent creativity and spirit of enterprise that each of you possesses. People used to talk a few years ago about how the Indian spirit of jugaad is being institutionalized. When I inaugurated something called the India Innovation Center at Toronto University's Monk School in Canada, jugaad was what everyone was talking about. Not just as something that people use to twist their way around the system to get things done or to cut corners. Some say jugaad is not good enough because it's about simply making do, whereas we should be striving for excellence. But jugaad has been much more than that. It's about new ways of thinking out of the box, as Bill Gates wants you to. Repurposing things to make do with what you've got within your resource constraints. Creating solutions, thinking in new ways, and most important, bringing non-traditional solutions to traditional issues. An Indian villager constructs a makeshift vehicle to transport his livestock and goods by rigging a wooden cart with an irrigation hand pump, and that serves as an engine. Common machines and household objects are reincarnated in ways that their original makers never intended. For example, in the hot summer months in Punjab, everyone wants to drink lassi, and an enterprising shopkeeper, finding it challenging to keep up with the demand, repurposed a washing machine to make his lassi in industrial-sized quantities and thereby serve the thirsty public. We are seeing everything being reimagined, and we should not be surprised. After all, when mobile phones first came to India and the bills were too high, parents would tell their children if they wanted to speak just to leave a missed call, and the parents would call them back. That, of course, is the way in which we have managed our jugaad. Instead of complicating or refining products, Indian innovators stripped them down to their bare essentials, making them affordable, accessible, durable, and effective. My point is that thinking in new ways, thinking out of the box, coming up within our own limited resources and our own realities is something we all have to learn to do. But it can be done. And Indians have demonstrated in history that we can do it. I often tell people, even in this tech age, that we can be inspired by a story from the 1890s of the great industrialist-to-be, Jamshedji Tata, who was denied admission to Pike's Hotel in Bombay at the peak of the British Empire, where they had a sign outside saying, "Indians and dogs not allowed." So what did he do? He went off and built a far grander, more opulent hotel that was open to Indians. I don't know about the dogs, but the Indians could get in. That was the Taj Mahal Hotel. And I don't know about the dogs, as I said, but today the Taj Mahal Hotel is considered one of the finest in the world, whereas Pike's Hotel, which wouldn't admit him, has long since closed. Similarly, when the same Mr. Tata set up India's first ever steel mill in 1905, in the face of implacable British hostility, a colonial official of that era sneered that he would personally eat every ounce of steel that an Indian was capable of producing. It's a pity he didn't live long enough to see the descendants of Jamshedji Tata taking over and more recently selling what remains of British Steel through its acquisition of Chorus. It would have given him a bad case of indigestion. But what I'm trying to say is, just as in that time at the cusp of the 20th century, so too at the beginning of the 21st, we must set aside the stereotypes of who can and who cannot excel at what in our globalizing world. In this new world, we need new entrepreneurs who can lead, who can innovate, who can inspire, who can reach out beyond the limits that their forerunners have lived with. Our countries need a nationwide commitment to quality that can work across all these areas, create awareness, promote effective implementation, and continually improve as we go along. And just as no one expected an Indian to be able to make steel, so too we in Thiruvananthapuram have to live down our reputation as a purely governmental capital of old-fashioned conservative values. We are already a hub of the future. India's first technopark was actually in Thiruvananthapuram back in 1991. It's still flourishing, it's growing, it's thriving. It's been overtaken in the popular perception by places like Gurgaon and Hyderabad and Mumbai. But the truth is that Thiruvananthapuram is back with a vengeance, and this gathering here on the beach in Adimalathurai is our coming-of-age party. It is our debutante's ball. We are saying to the world today, we are ready to take on the challenges of being, once again, the pioneers. And the Huddle Global, to my mind, is an excellent way of looking forward to that transformation. And I must say, in many ways, the best is yet to come, because age is on our side. We all know that Indians have a huge competitive advantage in demography. This is the time for us to seize that advantage. At a time when many of our potential Asian competitors, China, Japan, South Korea, are facing a serious demographic squeeze, and of course the rest of the world is aging. In Europe, the average age is 46. In Japan, it's 47. Even in youthful, immigrant-fueled America, it's now 40. And the average age in India is 29. So we have a huge young population, and we can definitely find them everywhere in the so-called Tier 2 cities, of which Thiruvananthapuram is a pioneer. A young country where fresh graduates will be joining a dynamic, competitive, productive, youthful workforce, which could be the engine for the world. But of course, we all recognize that the demographic dividend will only work in our favor if we can educate and train our young people to seize the opportunities available to them in the 21st century, including the opportunities that entrepreneurs like you are creating and will create. That's where Thiruvananthapuram and Kerala score. We have lots and lots of capable, educated, skilled young people ready to take on the challenge. Our demographic dividend in many other places could become a demographic disaster because of the lack of educated, qualified people. But in India, if that's still a problem that needs to be overcome, in Kerala we have conquered it, and we have no shortage of able, educated people ready to take on this challenge with you. Harnessing our nation's potential and bringing about social and economic transformation that we all hope for will require, of course, not just education, but motivation. Motivated individuals who can provide leadership across all sectors of our economy. I've long been a firm advocate, since I was minister in the Education Ministry, a firm advocate of greater interface between industry and academia. And I want to reiterate that industry players like you in today's audience would be able, it seems to me, to connect far more easily now with universities, technical institutions, and get them involved in assigning students, including doctoral students, to work with you in your innovations. Promote the next generation of entrepreneurs already from the campuses. I must say that the reason that many of our startups perhaps are not succeeding, and I don't mean Thiruvananthapuram anymore, I'm not talking about India as a whole, is because it boils down to access to resources and know-how. Because after all, when a group of individuals conceive of an idea that will eventually form the core of their enterprise, securing access to funding is often a challenge. So if I may suggest to all of you, could 50 high net worth individuals from Kerala or with an interest in Kerala and involvement in Kerala put aside just $1 million each to create an investment corpus for Kerala startups? We would be willing in Kerala to house that and to help you take it forward into what will one day pay you back far more than the 50 million that you might invest. Here in Thiruvananthapuram, we are ready, and I say to all the high net worth individuals in this room, are you? So, to conclude, India's burgeoning entrepreneurial ambitions remain a significant weapon in our national arsenal as we march towards greater economic growth. While we celebrate those who have created a distinctive brand India by building phenomenal business empires, our chances have been strengthened by the fact that in recent years there's a proliferation of micro, small, and medium-level entrepreneurial ventures. Some will succeed, some will fail, but they will all energize our economic space, and they will throw out the best available minds and talents to lead the economy and then lead the country. We need to cultivate an ecosystem of entrepreneurial effort, as the right mindset is often half the battle won in finding the right solution. By having the Huddle Global here in Thiruvananthapuram, we are conveying we have the right mindset here. Come to us. We can help you and you can help us. Today it's important that each of you remembers that as entrepreneurs it's contingent on you to embark into the world. And I look at the young people here who are so numerous in the audience. We must embark into the world to display your talent and intelligence and set up new startup ventures. I can say with confidence that as motivated and mature individuals, both young and old in this room, you can and will make exceptional contributions to the vast pool of knowledge and wealth in our country and in the world. I see V.K. Matthews here, who started off an enterprise in the Technopark that today is indispensable to most of the world's airlines. And that's a global enterprise starting in Thiruvananthapuram. I feel that all these exceptional contributions you can make will make you leaders in your own right. And I'm sure you will carry the weight of the countless, nameless, faceless citizens of our state and of our country who will rely on your skill, your dedication, and your acquired talent to help build them a better tomorrow. Thank you all very much. My congratulations to the organizers of the Global Huddle. May this be a terrific success, and I look forward very much to the follow-up to our exciting discussions here. Thank you and Jai Hind.